Chapter 1. Into the Unknown. When we think of famous explorers, people like Christopher Columbus, Ferdinand Magellan, and Marco Polo come to mind. All were Europeans, and all struck out hoping to find trade routes and riches. Columbus, for example, was sent by the Queen of Spain to find a westward trade route across the Atlantic Ocean to the Far East. But like several other world travelers, he ended up finding something totally unexpected. In his case, the New World, which Europeans didn't even know existed. Centuries after Columbus first crossed the Atlantic Ocean, America would have explorers of its own. Like the earlier Europeans, these people boldly traveled into the unknown. They would discover not what lay across wide oceans, but what lay up mighty rivers, across vast plains, and beyond towering mountain ranges. They would explore the vast and wondrous lands between the east and west coasts of America. Among all of America's explorers, perhaps none are more famous than Meriwether Lewis and William Clark, who are often referred to in history books as simply Lewis and Clark. Unlike Columbus, these two former soldiers didn't sail the high seas on their historic adventure, which began in 1804. But their journey did involve navigating treacherous, uncharted rivers inside the continental United States. What they found during their epic journey of exploration included majestic landscapes, wild animals never before seen by white men, and a variety of Native American tribes. Meriwether Lewis, William Clark, and several dozen other men who joined the adventure came to be known as the Corps of Discovery. A corps is a group of people, often soldiers, who act together for a common goal. Lewis and Clark were former soldiers, but several of the men in their party had no military background at all. The men in the Corps of Discovery came from all walks of life and from many American states. One especially valuable person who joined the expedition was a Native American woman. Her name was Sacagawea, and she carried her infant child nearly the entire length of the Corps of Discovery's 28-month, 8,000-plus-mile trip. Like Columbus's voyage, Lewis and Clark's original quest turned out to be something of a failure. They were searching for the fabled Northwest Passage, a long-sought trade route. The Northwest Passage would allow valuable goods such as animal furs to be transported from the unsettled northwestern half of America by river to St. Louis. At the time, St. Louis, in present-day Missouri, was the farthest edge of civilization. What Lewis and Clark discovered was that there was no easy water route to reach the Pacific coast of America via the Missouri River. Blocking the way were the mighty Rocky Mountains. Although the existence of the Rockies had been known, the mountains were far taller and wider than anyone but the Indians could imagine. But Lewis and Clark's journey wasn't really a failure. Even their not finding the Northwest Passage had some benefits. It led explorers to search for other routes across the continent. And Lewis and Clark proved that the trip to the Pacific was possible, even if it was difficult and often dangerous. The diaries the two leaders kept of their journey revealed a great deal about Native Americans, as well as the amazing diversity of plants, animals, and countryside the explorers saw along the way. And the Corps of Discovery mapped their route so well that it served as a guide to opening up the western frontier to further exploration and settlement. Of course, many historians have pointed out that by opening a gateway to the frontier, Lewis and Clark paved the way for America's conquest of Great Plains and Western Indian tribes. The Indians would be outmanned and outgunned by the U.S. Army, and pioneers hungry to harvest furs, mine gold, and plant crops in western regions. And thanks to careless overhunting by whites who came after Lewis and Clark, the American buffalo was nearly extinct by the late 1800s. But pushing back Indian nations and killing off the buffalo certainly were not the intentions of Lewis and Clark, or of President Thomas Jefferson, who commissioned the expedition. Jefferson, who considered the expedition a quest for knowledge, had dreamed of it for 20 years. Of course, he hoped that Lewis and Clark's trek would boost America's economy.